the August 3rd Democratic primary.
CNN, America's campaign headquarters.
From the deck of the most decorated battleship in U.S. naval history, a decorated general, Norman Schwarzkopf, will tell Republican delegates the state of national defense.
Inside the hall in Philadelphia, the party faithful get set to hear from the conductor of the Straight Talk Express.
Tonight from Philadelphia, the 37th Republican National Convention. 2,000 delegates, 10,000 volunteers, and 15,000 media members have converged on the cradle of American democracy for the nomination of the GOP candidates for President and Vice President of the United States. In this grand old city, the grand old party of Lincoln, Eisenhower, and Reagan starts its quest for the White House, led by a man with Texas roots and a president's name. Now, from Philadelphia's First Union Center, here are CNN's Bernard Shaw, Judy Woodruff, and Jeff Greenfield.
And welcome on this night number 2. Judy, Jeff, Republicans have been maintaining that the Clinton-Gore administration, under that administration, national defense has weakened.
That's right, and the theme tonight, you might say it's a little bit wordy, but what they're calling it, strength and security with a purpose, safe in our homes and in the world, but it's the world that they're mainly focusing on tonight.
It is the world they're focusing on, but with a decided subtext. 2 of them, I would suggest. We're going to hear tonight from George W. Bush's principal foreign policy advisor, Condoleezza Rice, associated with the last Republican administration, not so incidentally, a relatively young African-American woman, not the sort of face we associate with defense and policy. And then they're going to look, I would suggest, back to the primary season, because they are featuring Senator John McCain, who provided the most interesting storyline of this election year with his Straight Talk Express and his shocking New Hampshire victory. And yes, John McCain will be talking about the world, the challenges, patriotism, sacrifice, but he is also telling the delegates, and more importantly America, I am wholeheartedly with George W. Bush, a message the Bush campaign is, one might say, more than happy to hear.
That's right, because he gave him a healthy challenge. He was in there, scared him mightily in New Hampshire, as Jeff points out. Michigan was another scare. I mean, there are several states down there where a majority of the delegates were originally for John McCain.
Indeed. Also on the floor, still reverberating the words heard last night from, among other people, former Army General Colin Powell, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Let's check in with our correspondents. First to the podium, Wolf Blitzer. The mood on the floor and the mood based on last night's.
There's no doubt, Bernie, that everyone here is energized. They're pumped up. They smell victory. They think it's going to be a big success, and they're energized in part, and perhaps in large part, because of the message delivered by General Powell last night. He spoke for some 25 minutes. He was very, very warmly received, enthusiastically received, and people all over this convention, whether very, very conservative Republicans or more moderate Republicans, they seem pumped. They seem ready to go. Organizers here say that they got their point across to the millions of Americans who were watching on television last night. They're encouraged by the numbers they're getting and how many people actually watched the speeches and watched at least part of this Republican convention, because this so-called new face of the Republican Party, the outreach to minorities, African Americans, Latinos, and others, seems to be exactly the message that they wanted to project. Let's go to the floor and our senior political correspondent, Candy Crowley, for more reaction. Candy?
No one was happier about the speech from Colin Powell than George W. Bush en route here through 6 swing states. Bush was asked about the speech this morning. He noted that both he and Powell had talked in the morning before the speech, and when Colin Powell told Bush what he would say, Bush said, please do. So this speech came with the express permission and approval of George George W. Bush, which is not to say that on the specifics Bush agrees with Colin Powell, particularly on affirmative action. Powell, who made a very strong statement about the Republican Party, criticizing it for its criticism of affirmative action. Bush prefers the term affirmative access. The best example they give of that is that in Texas schools, in high school, the top 10% in any high school class is guaranteed admission to a Texas state school. As a matter of fact, the Bush campaign doesn't even mind that it disagrees with Colin Powell on affirmative action, at least in the specifics, nor does it matter that they disagree with him on abortion. In fact, they believe that Colin Powell was up here speaking about these issues only proves the point that this is a big tent party. Now to my colleague Frank Sesnow.
Reaction within the African-American community is decidedly mixed. Those African-American delegates here were deeply appreciative of Colin Powell's remarks, Candy, saying at least it's a start, but recognizing the party has a very long way to go. Outside of this convention hall, it was altogether different. I spoke with the Reverend Jesse Jackson, civil rights leader, just a little while ago, and he said where the rubber meets the road, Colin Powell and George Bush are way far apart, because Powell was in effect calling for more spending on things of concern to black voters, such as schools, jails, the war against drugs, and that sort of thing. Jackson also says there's a gigantic disconnect between the people in this hall, in the Congress, and the money folks up in the skyboxes here in terms of who's making the decisions. He said they're virtually all white. Kwesi Mfume, head of the NAACP, wanted to address this group. He was turned down. Clearly, there's a lot of work still to be done. Gene Meserve now.
New Jersey Governor Christy Todd Ritwin spoke today to the Black Republican Leadership Council and said to them it was time for police departments around the country to end racial profiling. This another attempt by the Republicans to reach out to African Americans. But let me tell you, this party is not in fantasy land. It knows that despite its multi-hued presentation here and aggressive outreach efforts in the states, it is unlikely that large numbers of African Americans are going to come flocking to this party. But that is not really the point. What they are trying to do is reach out to the swing voters, the independents, the women in states like Illinois. These are people who in the past have been turned off by what they perceive as the exclusionary tone of the Republican Party. But there's a rub here. There's a problem. They have to appeal to those people in the middle without alienating the people on the right. The conservatives have been the bedrock of the party, but they are holding their criticism in the interest and unity in the hope of victory. Now for Democratic reaction to John King in Tennessee.
Well, Gene, thank you. We're standing here in front of the Tennessee delegation, a group of Republicans who hopes to send Al Gore back home to Tennessee. From the Gore campaign today, no reaction directly from the vice president. As is tradition, he is vacationing during the Republican convention. His campaign, though, did put out a piece of paper, and his aides making the case verbally that speech you heard from Colin Powell on the podium last night would not be a speech approved of by most of the delegates on the floor here of the Republican convention. For example, they noted General Powell said that every child in America should have health care. According to the Gore campaign, Governor Bush has no plan to do that. They also said that the vice president has a much better plan to get all the education priorities outlined by General Powell. Again, the vice president, as is tradition, keeping relatively low key, but a very unusual development these past few days. The president of the United States, Bill Clinton, on several occasions has pointedly criticized Governor Bush and has suggested on one occasion that Governor Bush is benefiting simply from being the son of a former president. Today, on his way here to Philadelphia, the man who will become the Republican nominee 2 nights from now, George W. Bush, decided it was time to fire back.
You know something? I welcome President Clinton's criticism. It's amazing to me that the President of the United States would spend time trying to be a political pundit. He is so desperate to have his legacy intact by getting Al Gore elected, he'll say anything, just like Al Gore will. And I welcome him into the arena. He was criticizing Dick Cheney the other day, I noticed. And you know, it's his prerogative. I'm not the least bit surprised, though.
Now, as the Republican convention continues, the Democrats making their case not so much in front of the cameras with politicians, but with television ads on in 17 battleground states criticizing Governor Bush's record in Texas. In the next few days, those ads will switch to another subject, health care. Back to you in the booth.
It's interesting to me, Judy and Bernie, Bill, that while we talk about the scripted convention and the one message, look what they're doing the first 2 nights. The first night they put on General Powell, who flatly disagrees with his own presidential nominee on affirmative action and the role of lobbyists. And tonight we're hearing from the man who tried to deny George W. Bush the nomination. So it seems to be pretty clear that they're saying there's room for a lot of people, even people who disagree with the governor on basic issues.
That's true, but they're clearly on board in terms of who the nominee is and so forth. But it is interesting, I think, that these notes from the Democrats are the first sort of tension that we've gotten out of this very, very love-in of a convention. Well, two of the main speakers this week were out there checking out the microphones at on the convention floor and the podium today. One of them, Dick Cheney. Well, here's John McCain, who of course is one of the main speakers tonight. Dick Cheney was also there, testing the microphone, checking out that lectern where he will be speaking later on this week. But it is McCain who speaks tonight, and he is just one part of a full schedule this Tuesday evening. Here's a look at this evening, the second night of the Republican National Convention, Tuesday, August 1st. At the end of the 8 o'clock hour, retired Army General Norman Schwarzkopf addresses the convention via satellite, but his stage will be the deck of the Navy ship, the USS New Jersey. Schwarzkopf will discuss military readiness as part of tonight's theme, Strength and Security with a Purpose, Safe in Our Homes and the World. Former Senator Bob Dole will lead a salute to U.S. military veterans, especially those who served in World War II, as he did. In the 10 o'clock hour, Condoleezza Rice talks about international relations, an expertise she used as an advisor to former President Bush. She continues in that role with his son, the presidential candidate. Former presidential candidate Elizabeth Dole will return to a recurring theme of the convention and the party. She'll discuss strength through compassion. Former presidential challenger John McCain, who spent 5.5 years as a Vietnamese prisoner of war, discusses the importance of military strength in the closing minutes of Tuesday, August 1st.
Well, it is almost certain that if George Bush becomes president, he will listen to Condoleezza Rice, and it is possible that he might be listening to John McCain as a member of his cabinet. But the broader question is, who else does George W. Bush, a potential president, listen to? We're going to take that up when we come back. Please stay with us.
Coverage of Election 2000 is brought to you by Chrysler and PaineWebber. For expanded coverage, log on to CNN.com. Chrysler, these will never land on an ordinary car. And PaineWebber, thank you, PaineWebber.
Time's up, Bob. You've had your fun, now you're mine.
Wait. Look, take my Da Vinci, my Van Goghs. They're priceless. Okay, my software companies, my beach house in Tahiti.
I've seen it all, done it all.
Not everything.
The Chrysler PT Cruiser. The world's never seen anything like it.
What's my investment strategy? How about buy things before they go up?
For a personal financial plan, please press 5.
I'm going to pay for this. What was I?
This market's still got a lot of upside.
This market's going south. Why didn't they write this last month?
Can't believe Dad thought he could check stock prices on this thing.
Okay, 2 of your stocks are up. What about the other 15?
Thank you, PaineWebber.
For the 1924 Republican Convention in Cleveland, people interested in hearing the proceedings no longer needed a ticket. 4 years earlier, people in Pittsburgh had heard the result of the presidential election on the newfangled radio. Now, listeners in 12 cities could be part of the process itself, as AT&T put together a 16-station radio network to broadcast the conventions, a major feat of engineering. Orators used to wandering around the stage had to stay inside a railing to keep them in the general vicinity of the microphone. Radio would play a big part in the campaign to follow, though one magazine predicted that by 1928, the broadcasting fad would be over.
One of the the things about radio in the old days was you had to speak with authority. At the podium, Wolf Blitzer has a man who speaks with authority. He's also the permanent chairman of this convention, House Speaker Dennis Hastert.
Thank you, Bernie. Mr. Speaker, when you take a look at the news of the day so far, this exchange, the verbal exchange between President Clinton and George W. Bush, is this politics as usual, or is there something going on that's not so it's not so usual?
Well, actually, I've just never seen this ever happen before in a campaign, and when you're going through your convention and having the other side weigh in. Usually it's been a good time to hands off, let the party have its day, lay out its vision, and without the other side weighing in. So it's very unusual, I think.
Well, why do you think they're doing it?
Well, I think one of the reasons is the Democrat Party's behind. They are worried about it, and they're doing everything which is typical of their style of fighting back. They're fighting back right away. They're not waiting.
You're going to bring down the gavel shortly here. What do you, one of the organizers, hope to achieve on this second night of this convention?
Well, I think we started laying out the vision of the Republican Party well last night, and Mrs. Bush and General Powell did a very excellent job, I think, of beginning that. We're going to have a little tribute of our past presidents and our people who were the leaders of the past, kind of go back and step. What are the roots of this party? What did people bring to this party? And then we're going to turn around and look at the future. What are our responsibilities? National defense, Norman Schwarzkopf. And then, have the other side of the story, and John McCain here tonight. I think that brings people together and saying, this party has something. We are vital. We're going to move forward and really get our story out there.
Mr. Speaker, thank you so much for joining us. I know you'll be back tomorrow in another capacity, but we'll save that for our audience. Thank you so much for joining us. Back to the booth, Jeff.
Thank you, Wolf. We're reminded that Dennis Hastert was a wrestling coach, which seems like a pretty good piece of training to be Speaker of the House of Representatives. Now, when we talk about a president, we're also talking about the men and women around that president. Think of John Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis. Think of Roosevelt trying to combat the Depression, or Ronald Reagan planning what to do about the Soviet Union. As governor, George W. Bush has set a distinct and very significant governing style. He sets the broad policies, but he leaves the details of the implementation to the others. Who might those others be in the White House? Our Candy Crowley takes a look.
Where does George Bush go for advice? Everywhere.
He's obviously got a staff, and he relies upon advice and counsel from the staff, but he's also got a wide range of friends and acquaintances from around the country. He keeps a very, sharp ear open for advice and counsel from people.
Who does George Bush listen to? How long have you got?
He's a tremendous listener. He reaches out to former schoolmates, former classmates, former co-workers, people he's been in business with. So I think in that sense, there is an unofficial kitchen cabinet.
But in the traditional sense, there is no kitchen cabinet in the Bush campaign, no small cadre of unofficial advisors who sit around a table and chew over details of strategy and policy. There is rather a larger group, many culled from the platinum Rolodexes of the Reagan and Bush administrations, names who are from time to time called upon for input. But on a regular basis, some are more called upon than others.
Condoleezza Rice and Larry Lindsey and Steve Goldsmith are three names of people that have come since the campaign got started. I trust their judgment.
A clear Bush favorite, Condoleezza Rice is the marquee player on international policy. The top Soviet expert on President Bush's national security team, Rice helped formulate U.S.-Russian policy in the post-Cold War era. A former governor at the Federal Reserve, Larry Lindsey, serves as Bush's mainstay economic advisor. And domestic policy falls into the bailiwick of the former mayor of Indianapolis, Stephen Goldsmith. On the staff side, Bush relies on a tightly knit trio of political and strategic advisors.
Karen Hughes, Joe Arbaugh, Karl Rove are three names of people that have been with me ever since I ran for governor of Texas. They're extremely close. They're also friends.
They are the Iron Triangle. They hate the name because they think it makes them sound too exclusive, too protective. They are all Texas and all loyal. All have been with him 7 years or more. Hughes runs the communications operation. Rove is the top political strategist. Arbaugh makes the place work. They report to Don Evans.
Don Evans is a friend of mine that is for me for the right reason.
The next president of the United States.
Evans says his conversations with Bush range from how the message is going across in the country to the activities of old friends from Midland. Evans is a successful businessman who is smart and knows how to raise money. He is a loyal, decades-long Bush friend. He is not a political pro, but he's learning.
He does have a kitchen cabinet. It's the American people.
To a person, all of those who are closest to Bush say he takes some advice, he discards other advice, and in the end, the decision is his alone. Judy?
All right, Candy Crowley, advice on matters domestic and international. Tonight, the focus is international, and for that, Bill Schneider joins us to tell us a little bit what Americans think about things international. Bill.
Exactly. That's the theme for tonight. It's world affairs. Now, that's strange. Who's concerned about world affairs? Where are the voters? Well, the voters' big concerns this year are education, health care, Social Security. World affairs ranks very low. And don't forget that famous pop quiz when a sneaky reporter asked Governor Bush to name some world leaders. Well, duh. Why would the convention want to call attention to Bush's weakness? Well, surprise, world affairs is not Bush's weakness, at least not in the voters' perception. International policy is the area where Bush has his strongest lead over Al Gore. Now, why do voters think the governor of Texas is so good on world affairs? Because he's seen as a stronger leader than Al Gore, and because world affairs was his father's strong suit. Young Bush has signed on several major advisors on international policy from his father's administration, including Dick Cheney. Thanks, Dad. And one more thing. Tomorrow is the 10th anniversary of the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait. Someone is bound to point that out. But Saddam Hussein is still in power. I don't think anybody's going to point that out.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
He might be watching our convention coverage. You know?
That's right.
Does this suggest to you that in the absence of any interest in international affairs, that it might be an actual advantage to Al Gore if foreign policy came to the surface in the fall, if there was some kind of foreign policy issue, even a crisis that would focus attention, do you think?
It might well, because he is seen as having more direct personal experience in international affairs, and it generally accrues to the benefit of the incumbent. Now, he's not the incumbent president, he's the incumbent vice president, but if people want a sure and steady hand, the vice president is someplace they might turn.
But it is significant that they did decide to devote virtually this entire night to international affairs. I mean, they could have done it some other way, but they chose to talk about it.
Yes, and an issue that ranks very low in voters' concerns this year, unlike most elections of the past 30 years.
Well, who is whispering into this man's ear? Candy told us a little bit. More on the advisors of George Walker Bush. Let's go down to the floor and Candy Crowley. I'm sorry, Gene Meserve.
That's okay, Bernie. Happy to be mistaken for Candy. Down here right now with Governor John Engler of Michigan, who has known the governor for more than 10 years and has supported his candidacy. When it comes to international affairs, does Governor Bush have what it takes?
Well, I think he certainly does. Interestingly, he comes with a set of experiences that are certainly far greater than Bill Clinton, for example, had when he arrived at the presidency. Being a governor on an international border with Mexico, he's long had relations with the Mexican governors and the Mexican government, as well as in Central and South America. So there's a side there, without mentioning all of the other background that he's had just through association. I thought the pick of Dick Cheney was very interesting because he said, you know, I'm willing also to put somebody on this ticket whose strengths complement my strengths, and we've got a really great team.
Are there areas where the governor has less knowledge than he will need? Specifically, I'm thinking in terms of Asia, of China, where there's going to be a big challenge in the next administration.
Well, no question about that, I suppose. But, you know, the one strength, the one cardinal virtue that you have to have in negotiating with foreign leaders is being a person of great integrity, whose word means exactly what you say. Somebody who's not going to use the international stage as a way to try to get well back home, to fix domestic problems. And I think George Bush has a great sense about people and a great ability to listen, and I think that's another skill that sometimes is in short supply.
Governor John Engler, thanks so much for joining us here today. And now back to the booth.
All right, Gene Meserve. And where there are people making political decisions, there are lobbyists. And when we come back, we'll tell you about lobbyists all over the place here.
extra cash in your pocket right now with a 125% second mortgage from Ditech.com. Use the money to pay off bills, credit cards, whatever you want. A 125% second means you can borrow more than the actual value of your home with no equity and no appraisal. Put extra cash in your pocket right now. Get fast online approval or call us at 1-800-71-FIX.
You know, in every political race, freedom itself is at stake. From a county seat to the Oval Office, there's always one candidate who advocates personal freedom more than others. And as votes are cast, freedom will accordingly win or lose. So, as Americans gather again to make this magnificent machinery work, remember, freedom runs in every race. Let's vote freedom first.
Let's see. College in 4 years. Costs up 40% over the next 5. Somebody do the math here.
It'd be great if our money would grow as fast as these kids. I can't believe.
Will paying for college be as painful as this?
Hey, that kid just dropped a pretzel? Because I like pretzels. I really like
We'll be able to help with their education.
I wonder if we should have put that money in a trust. Maybe we would have...
I hope she was kidding about college in Hawaii.
Thank you, Painweber.
Tonight, live from the GOP convention, the Bush-Cheney ticket. Minorities and Our Youth. When George P. Bush joins Larry King live, tonight, 9 Eastern on CNN.
We're talking hundreds of channels, dozens of premium movie choices, pay-per-view, uninterrupted digital music. And best of all, if something breaks, you don't have to fix a thing. Service is local. Steve. Yo, Stevie. He's just jealous. Because I am able with the cable.
Behind every great man is a great woman. Behind presidential candidate James Price, there are 4 great women.
We are like a sorority. We've all slept with Jenny's husband.
Who says old girlfriends aren't an asset?
See Tom Selleck in the world premiere of Running Mates. Sunday, August 13th at 7, only on TNT.
The only thing they ever named after First Lady is a rehab center.
CNN, America's campaign headquarters.
The convention will now come to order.
At the 1948 Republican Convention in Philadelphia, delegates had to deal with something new, television. For the first time, the events were broadcast live to the East Coast. Party leaders told delegates to be aware of the TV cameras, telling them, don't take off your shoes and take the toothpick out of your mouths. Illinois Governor Dwight Green was the keynote speaker.
We shall not deceive you, as did the Democrats before 2 world wars, by crying peace when there was no peace.
Green had prepared for the harsh television lights by tanning under a sun lamp.
Wish I'd done that. Now, we know in the streets of Chicago, we know in the streets of Seattle that sometimes events outside the hall can influence what has happened inside the hall. On the streets of Philadelphia today, more than 100 demonstrators have been arrested. Our Charles Bierbauer has been covering that story.
Jeff, perhaps emboldened by what did happen in Seattle, demonstrators and police have been face-offing all afternoon here in downtown Philadelphia. These are live pictures we're going to be looking at now just outside of City Hall. CNN can confirm that at least 113 demonstrators have been arrested. I myself have seen perhaps 20 of those, most around City Hall, where young people sat down in the street, linked arms, and defied police to arrest them in this act of civil disobedience. States. There are several demonstrations that converged in the course of the afternoon. Their causes are multiple. Economic injustice, racial injustice, they say, police brutality, they contend, and the death penalty, which they raise both in the context of Texas, where Governor George W. Bush has, in many cases, refused to stop executions, and also in a very localized context in the behalf of Mumia Abu-Jamal. He is a black Philadelphian on death row here in Pennsylvania. But this is not entirely aimed at the Republicans. In one part of the demonstration, a speaker was advocating an act of civil disobedience by saying, let's use our right not to vote, and suggesting not voting for either party. This was relatively calm in spite of all the commotion. I asked one police captain. He said, well, you'd have to define relatively calm. I said, I've seen worse. He said he had as well. Judy?
All right, Charles Bierbauer, thanks for that report. Well, whatever is going on in the streets of Philadelphia, for public consumption, this convention is all about openness, about opening this party to new faces, to new constituencies. But you know, there's another whole set of meetings going on in this city between the politicians and the lobbyists. And there, the doors are most definitely closed. Brooks Jackson has that.
This part of the convention, they don't want you to see.
Guys, can we not block the sidewalk? Huh? I'm Brooks Jackson. I see you. I know, Brooks. How are you? Is anybody here?
Corporate parties, whining, dining, entertainment. This rock and roll bash, to which we were politely disinvited, is for Congressman Mike Oxley of Ohio. He wants to be chairman of the House Commerce Committee.
The event reportedly cost $400,000, and we're told it was paid for by trade associations for the insurance industry and electric utilities, industries overseen by the Commerce Committee.
Inside the convention hall, it's all scripted, produced, made for TV. Outside, it's a lobbyist ball. General Motors put on this event for lawmakers in states where it has factories. Here's Senator Fred Thompson, and here's Tennessee's other senator, Bill Frist. Business is spending millions on these parties. Nobody knows how many millions. There's no disclosure required. Lobbyists by the trainload. The Union Pacific actually laid half a mile of new track and brought 30 gleaming rail cars here to entertain lawmakers and delegates. They call it marketing, an educational tool.
We have dinners, breakfasts, lunches, receptions.
There are lounge cars, dining cars, cooking cars.
We're going to be having New Orleans-style barbecue shrimp.
The lobbying or marketing or education, whatever it is bipartisan. Many of these cars will soon head for Los Angeles for the Democratic convention.
There's going to be plenty of parties at this at these both parties' conventions. They don't call them party conventions for nothing.
But it's partying with a purpose. Daimler Chrysler, now based in Germany, is here selling itself as a compassionate American corporation. The cost? They say not so much.
Basically, the cost of doing a show like this, an exhibit like this, is less than doing a Super Bowl spot.
And look who's saying the same thing. One of the lawmakers being honored by Daimler Chrysler.
You know, the same organization that's doing this interview would charge about, for a Super Bowl, would charge about $1.2 million for a 30-second commercial. $1.2 million for a 30-second commercial.
Super Bowl? Not on CNN. Watts was confused, possibly distracted by all that corporate partying. Brooks Jackson, CNN, following the money in Philadelphia.
I guess we're not going to be covering the Super Bowl. Brooks is right. Now, all through this convention week, we have been giving you quizzes to test your political knowledge, and we're going to do 3 more of them now. Please get out your pencils and paper. Do not call. We have nothing to give you but our admiration if you get these right. First, which presidential election winner earned the highest electoral vote total in history? Was it Ronald Reagan in 1984, Richard Nixon in 1972, Abraham Lincoln in 1864, Franklin Roosevelt in 1944? The correct answer, Judy Berney?
Was it Roosevelt?
No, sorry. You'll have to leave the booth. It was Ronald Reagan in 1984. He carried everything but Minnesota and the District of Columbia.
Oh, boy.
Right. Okay. Well, let's try this next one. Okay. Prescott Bush, the grandfather of Texas Governor George W. Bush, served as United States Senator for which state? Was it Maine, B, Texas,
nope.
C, Florida, D, Connecticut? And the answer, gentlemen and lady, is?
Connecticut.
This is correct. Connecticut Yankee. Okay, last question. Who of these presidential candidates carried 27 states, the most ever, in a losing campaign? Was it Richard Nixon in 1960? Was it George Bush in 1992? Was it Tom Dewey in 1948? Or Gerald Ford in 1976?
Gerald Ford.
Bernie?
Jerry Ford.
We got two experts. You don't want to call a friend to use that lame reference? Okay. It was Jerry Ford in 1976. And in fact, if he carried New York State...
My reputation's intact.
If he carried New York State, which he almost did, he would have been elected president with a minority of the popular vote, with fewer popular votes than Jimmy Carter, and then we would have had a dust-up. I believe we will take a break now, and we'll be back with much more in a moment. Congratulations.
Coverage of Election 2000 is brought to you by Akamai and America's pharmaceutical companies. For expanded coverage, log on to CNN.com. Akamai, bringing you a better internet, and America's pharmaceutical companies.
Hey, where's the fire business traveler guy? You know, it doesn't have to be like this. Always go, go, go. You need conference casting, the whole new way to do business on the web. Streaming audio and video. You can show Microsoft PowerPoint slides, answer questions, and even poll your audience in real time. The dream's gone. No more traveling, no headaches, no more. Hey, slow down there, mister.
Conference casting is powered by Akamai and is available through ACT teleconferencing.
Sure, you're not allowed to be up here. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Does everybody know what this is? A heart. 50 million Americans suffer from high blood pressure. There are no symptoms, yet high blood pressure is the primary cause of heart disease. There are still millions who are unable to lower their blood pressure with medication. That's why we're developing this new medicine, and it has excellent effectiveness in treating blood pressure. Maybe by the time these kids are my age, we'll have found a way to prevent high blood pressure in everyone.
Which would you rather do? Make minimum monthly payments on your credit cards for the rest of your life? Or pay them off right now with a second mortgage with no closing costs from Ditech.com? Whether you have equity or no equity, good credit or not so good credit, Ditech Second Mortgage with absolutely no closing costs can help you to consolidate your high-interest debts into one lower monthly payment. Get fast online approval or call us right now at 1-800-71-FIXED.
Here in Philadelphia, the delegates are filing in. The buses are bringing them from their downtown hotels. And in about 10 minutes, things will get underway for night number 2. Joining us now, CNN commentator and former White House press secretary for President Clinton, that gentleman on the left, Mike McCurry, and from CNN's Crossfire, Mary Matalin. Mike, Mary, what is President Clinton trying to do? Is he in the position of lobbing a grenade across the stage, trying to goad Governor Bush by these comments he's made about the governor being the son of a president, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Mike.
Well, you know, Bernie, he loves politics. I don't think there's ever been anyone who has played at this level who really enjoys the give and take of politics as much as he does. And my guess is it just is constitutionally incapable for him to stay out of the fray. Now, very interestingly, he feels almost paternal to the Gore campaign at this point. If you think of the other side of this race, it really is a question of paternity. And I suspect you're going to see a lot more of this. It was very clear today that Governor Bush got drawn into this debate very, very quickly. You know, sensed defending his father's entry into the race. President Bush this morning was on television calling the Opposition Research Division at the Democratic Committee a bunch of nerds. I mean, sort of strange language in a way for a former president. But if you think about it, Bill Clinton gets drawn into it easily too, because he feels so intensely about Al Gore and the job he's done. And I suspect this is the first moment of this convention that looked like it was off script for the Republicans. I don't know if Mary would agree with that, but I think this was not according to the program. They didn't want to have this excursion into a debate between two presidents today.
Well, I'm sure that it wasn't according to plan, but I think American voters, Bernie, make the difference between paternity between two political addicts, that would be the president and the vice president, and a real father and a real son. Yes, Governor Bush has said that he gets more upset by attacks on his father, and the father said he gets more upset by the attacks on his son than being attacked individually, and I think voters recognize that. But the problem with what President Clinton is doing, which is unprecedented, it has never happened. Reagan didn't do it. This term for Gore is analogous to ours in '88. Reagan did not overshadow Vice President Bush when it was his time to show his leadership skills, and this is a particular vulnerability for Al Gore, who has a 20-point deficit on leadership. He's not going to get there if Clinton keeps bigfooting it. Also, this attack on the daddy's boy. President Bush has a 74% job approval rating. People liked that time. They liked that man. It's just this is a three-cushion shot that's just not working for them, and I suspect the Gore campaign has not sent the president out there to shake this thing up.
Mary, let me take some issue with you on this, though. Tonight is going to be a night devoted to the considerable achievements of President Bush in the foreign policy arena. You're going to hear a lot of attacks about where the Clinton stewardship of the U.S. military has been, for example, charges that, by the way, I think are wrong because I think they've got their facts wrong. But, you know, in a way, this highlights the problem for Governor Bush, because associating the memory of that victory in the Desert Storm War, that retinue of people, including Dick Cheney, who are there emblematic of the stewardship of President Bush in office, is just a reminder to the whole country that maybe the son is not quite the equal of the father. I think there's an inherent tension in this, and we're going to see it over and over in this campaign.
So, Mary, go ahead. Well, I'm not sure that's what's clearly what they're trying to do tonight, but that is a reminder of something that people look at favorably. What they're trying to point out tonight is how the military under the Clinton stewardship is underpaid, undertrained, demoralized.
They had the largest increase in pay for the U.S. military, and you know, the cuts that they're going to talk about tonight began under President Reagan. Why? Because the Cold War came to an end. It was natural to sort of downsize. Judy.
Mike, you know, just picking up on this thing, I mean, it's not just President Clinton who's making these comments. Hillary Clinton in New York talking about, you know, political amnesia, taking a shot not just at Lazio, but this whole Republican convention at George W. Bush. Do you really believe Al Gore is pleased to have this going on by his president, his boss, and by the First Lady running in New York?
I think, to be honest with you, Judy, I think Al Gore's probably happy he's on a beach somewhere in North Carolina right about now. Look, in fairness to Mrs. Clinton, she's a candidate for office in which there are very high stakes being raised by this convention for her own race. Now, this again is going to be part of the tension of having the existing first family in the middle of politics in this very political season that we're entering into. I don't see any other way. The Gore campaign is going to have to successfully navigate around it, and they're going to have to take that moment that comes in Los Angeles to really put him center stage so that it becomes his convention, his party, and really his vision of the future that we argue about going ahead.
But it's going to be, Judy, it's going to be very difficult for the vice president to do that if for no other reason. Even if there's some way to control an uncontrollable president here who is a political addict, he cannot wipe from the stage this very high-profile, in many cases more high-profile race in New York, which obviously is the First Lady's, which brings us to last night. Laura Bush was she gave a wonderful speech. Her teleprompter broke. She didn't miss a beat. But it was, for Republicans and I think the country, a very interesting contrast with this sitting First Lady and a positive, and to the positive for the Bush campaign.
Mary and Mike, let me just put something on the table for you. Don't both these candidates, in a sense, have the same problem? That is, Gore wants to associate himself with Clinton, but doesn't want Clinton to overshadow him. W. Bush wants to kind of be associated with the better feeling about his father, but doesn't want his father to make him look like daddy's boy. I mean, isn't this a rather unusual, almost unprecedented kind of presidential campaign in both campaigns?
It has to be, by definition, unprecedented, because we've never been in a situation where a first lady was taking such an active role in politics. But, you know, in a way, it's part of the drama that plays out. This is a very human campaign season that we're into, and it is going to be, the human emotions are going to be just beneath the surface here. I saw the clip today of Governor Bush as he reacted, and you could tell there was the anger of a son coming to the defense of his father. This is going to be a very strange campaign for this reason, because you're going to see more of it. I suspect that Democrats learned something valuable today. They found out that you can really rattle Governor George Bush by talking about his father.
Jeff, one reason this isn't going to be a problem for the governor, forget the drama. I don't think people object to being a son being rattled by attacks on his father. But George Bush is changing the face of the Republican Party. This is a 21st century Republican Party. This convention is a reflection of him. Bill Clinton has already moved his party to the center in 1992. That's what George Bush is doing, and reminding people of the civility and the dignity of his father's term can only be a positive, I think.
Okay, Marion Matlin, Mike McCurry, thanks very much. Senator John McCain, it's his night tonight, and also the delegates continue filing into the hall. They're getting ready to get started very shortly. When we come back, Mrs. McCain, and a look at this second night at the Republicans convening here in Philadelphia.
Alzheimer's disease takes billions of healthy brain cells and slowly turns them into a tangled web. At our pharmaceutical company, we're trying to remove the amyloid plaque from the brain of the Alzheimer patient. And we are developing a vaccine that activates the immune system to help remove that plaque. My hope is that nobody's parent or grandparent will ever suffer from this disease again.
You know, in every political race, freedom itself is at stake. From a county seat to the Oval Office, there's always one candidate who advocates personal freedom more than others. And as votes are cast, freedom will accordingly win or lose. So, as Americans gather again to make this magnificent machinery work, remember, freedom runs in every race. Let's vote freedom first.
How many experts does it take to predict a market change?
Tickets, folks. I'm out.
Tax laws have changed. Should I be looking at my estate plan again?
Anyone who knows me wouldn't recommend a stock like this.
Oh, not again. This guy.
Investment strategies for you. Great. Just for me and 5 million other people.
Thank you, Paine-Webber.
Will be presented tonight by the Joint Services Color Guard.
As the colors come forward at the invitation of House Speaker Hastert, the Pledge of Allegiance is going to be given by Everett Alvarez, a man who was a prisoner of war. Judy?
That's right. The first American pilot shot down in North Vietnam in 1964. He was spent 8 years in Vietnam as a POW. He was captured and taken to the infamous Hanoi Hilton. For the first year and a half, he spent in solitary confinement.
And I think we see a rather deliberate precursor here to the featured speaker of the night, John McCain, who spent 5.5 years in North Vietnamese prison, some of that in that same infamous Hanoi Hilton.
Exactly right.
And music from Bridge over the River Kwai, Colonel Bogey's March, and of course that movie about prisoners of war brings back memories. It's a good feeling to hear this tune when you're free. Of course, behind bars, and when you're captured these strains might go through your head quite a bit. They certainly might have gone through the head of the man from Arizona, John McCain.
Bernie, that's a really good point. It's amazing how everything fits together. I mean, we talk perhaps too much about, to use the cliche, the scripted convention, but here you have the leader of the Pledge of Allegiance, the music picked for him, the featured speaker of the night, Condoleezza Rice telling us how future Vietnams are going to be avoided, one assumes, all part of a common theme. The contrast between conventions of old, when they couldn't even tell the President of the United States what time in the morning he was going to speak, and a convention like tonight is highlighted even at the very start of this kind of convention.
And from the decks of the most decorated battleship in United States naval history tonight, Storeman Norman Schwarzkopf.
That's right. Led the United States, led the Allies in the Gulf War 10 years ago. A man who really came to symbolize this at a point when people had some doubts about the American military, just what the American military was capable of.
It looks calm on the floor, but it's noisy, it's warm, sometimes hot. Candy Crowley, you're down there. What does it feel like?
Bernie, it's getting very crowded down here. This is still a very excited group. I think it's going to take 4 days to wear them down. They are now, just as you came to me, of course, they quieted down for the Pledge of Allegiance. As you know, this is a military night, and they will be... Here's the Pledge of Allegiance now.
He was, by the way, a supporter of John McCain in the primaries.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
From Detroit, Michigan, wearing a folk costume from the region of Krakow, Poland, to honor America, 9-year-old.
Doesn't he look fit? You can see why he survived 8 years.
And once again, at the risk of repeating myself, the thematic unity of this convention, yes, a POW who supported John McCain in leading us to the Pledge of Allegiance to set up the featured speaker of the night, John McCain. And we'll be back in a minute.
Come alive. Host an international student today. ICES makes it so easy. 24 countries. Countless memories. Give your family the gift they will never forget. ICES, bringing the world closer, one smile at a time.
The Earth gives us a rich supply of natural resources. Each one nurtures life in all its majesty, but we are in danger of destroying this precious mosaic. Our air and water are poisoned, and many animals and plants face extinction. The future health of the world depends on every one of us. The Global Environment Facility, caring for the planet.
I thought my baby would look just like me. I knew she'd have the biggest eyes, her father's smile. I thought I'd be there to see it. Each year, almost 600,000 women die during pregnancy or childbirth. But this tragic loss can be stopped. The Safe Motherhood Initiative has developed simple, affordable health and education programs that save lives. Visit our website or write us today. The Safe Motherhood Initiative, because our mothers are our future.
Tonight, live from the GOP convention, the Bush-Cheney ticket. Minorities and our youth. When George P. Bush joins Larry King live, tonight, 9 Eastern on CNN.
With so many program choices on digital cable, the new TV Guide Interactive makes watching television better than ever. TV Guide Interactive, the on-screen guide for digital cable, is not only easier to use, but it has a whole new look, giving you even more control. All your favorite features are still there. Listings the way you want, parental control, plus a lot more, like 3-day local weather on demand and detailed program information. The new TV Guide Interactive is coming soon. To find out more, call your cable operator today.
12 Stones Crossing, a premier golf community. At last, a community framed by a world-class golf course with outstanding vistas from each home. Newmark Homes' award-winning architecture designed to accentuate the views of the beautiful surroundings. Why reserve your next vacation at a resort when you live it year-round at 12 Stones Crossing? 12 Stones Crossing, just across from historic Mansper Station. Take 65 north to Long Hollow Pike and turn right. 12 Stones Crossing, start a new mark in your life.
What is the value of an education? How much does it really cost? You could start investing now, but will you have enough when he's ready for college? What will you say when he's ready and you're not? Investing from First Tennessee. That's right, First Tennessee.
May I take your order, ladies? Do you make your salads with produce place tomatoes? No, ma'am, we don't.
Well, can you use this, please?
Tomatoes so fresh and ripe, people are asking for them all over town. The Produce Place has the freshest vegetables and fruits in Nashville. You won't believe their huge selection. Plus, they carry specialty food items, gourmet coffees, and a great selection of organic products. Come taste the difference the Produce Place will make in your kitchen. Murphy Road and Highway 70 in Bellevue.
CNN, America's campaign headquarters.
This is John McCain's night. He is the featured speaker. He was the person who injected genuine uncertainty into the primary process that was supposed to be, in his words, a Bush coronation. But that campaign effectively ended March 7th. So, Bill Schneider, what remains of the McCain phenomenon? Is there a political impact of the senator's role even now and into the fall?
No question, it was the biggest story this year. But as they say in Hollywood, does this story have legs? Well, where are the voters? 2/3 of Republicans have a favorable opinion of John McCain, but so do a majority of Democrats and independents, which is why some Republicans didn't trust him. Why did McCain become such a sensation? Here's a clue. The name of his bus, the Straight Talk Express. Straight Talk. That's exactly what a lot of voters were looking for. Why? Because they didn't think they were getting it from Bill Clinton. What are the most memorable things Clinton has said? I did not have sexual relations with that woman. I didn't inhale. It depends on what the meaning of is. McCain argued that the Republican Party cannot win simply as a conservative party. It has to offer something more. He wanted to turn it into a reform party. But McCain's argument goes up in smoke if Bush wins. But he still has to play the good soldier, or make that the good sailor, because he was actually in the Navy, if he wants to have a future in the Republican Party.
Well, to play the good sailor, he's got to have troops in ranks marching lockstep as he supports George Bush. Let's look some of these McCain delegates in the eye. Down on the floor, John Key.
Bernie, I'm standing in the Wyoming delegation. This is Dick Cheney country, but standing here with the one McCain delegate in the Wyoming delegation, Clark Stitt. Clark's been telling us that he was never involved in presidential politics before, never active in a campaign before. He was in this campaign for John McCain. Clark, tell us why.
John, the American people need to have confidence in their government. And it's only when we break the iron triangle of money, legislation, and lobbyists that we'll be able to have confidence in our government. And that's why I believe campaign finance reform is so important.
Are you concerned now that Governor Bush has not put campaign finance reform atop his agenda, and that the McCain voters like yourself and perhaps those not as closely affiliated with the Republican Party might stay home or look elsewhere in November?
Well, I believe that the issue is confidence in government. And with Governor Bush, Dick Cheney, and Colin Powell at the helm, I believe Americans will have confidence in that government.
What is your sense of the commitment of the governor to that specific issue, though, campaign finance reform?
Well, I hope he has the power to make it a priority upon getting into the White House. It's not something he campaigned upon, but I believe it's something he could evolve toward.
the state where John McCain put this issue on the map and first stunned Governor Bush was New Hampshire, of course. Senator McCain launched his presidential effort with a big win in the New Hampshire primary. Over in the New Hampshire delegation, our Frank Sesno.
Thanks, John. And boy, they haven't forgotten John McCain in this delegation. He trounced George W. Bush in New Hampshire. I'm with two delegates here. They're McCain delegates. Kathy Flora, a state representative. Also, Richard Brothers, you're also a McCain delegate and a state representative. Kathy, let me start with you. You signed a piece of paper, your delegation today. What was that all about?
This morning we had to give our votes to George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. Sunday night, Senator McCain released his delegates. My heart, when I came here, still was tied to Senator McCain. When he released us, we all came on board with George W. Bush.
A little difficult today signing that piece of paper?
It was tough, but I wanted to pull together with my delegation at the same time. Senator McCain would want that from us.
Richard, you are a very strong McCain backer. Do you see enough of a footprint here?
Well, John McCain set our hearts on fire in New Hampshire. Those embers are still burning pretty brightly. We'll support George Bush because that's what John McCain has asked us to do. But we will forever love John McCain.
And you were telling me a little while ago that among some Republicans in New Hampshire, they're not forgetting, and they may not come November either.
There are some Republicans that I have spoken to in my hometown of Bedford who are telling me they're going to write in John McCain. We can't seem to shake it. There was a passion in New Hampshire. There still is a passion for reform in New Hampshire, and a lot of it has to do with that man.
How are they going to vote?
They may write in John McCain.
In the general election. Very interesting. Kathy Flora. Richard, thanks very much. Let's go across the floor now to Gene Meserve.
Frank, thank you. With me is Chris Healy. He was field director for the McCain effort in Connecticut. Chris, I can't help but notice you still have McCain buttons here on your shirt. Does that signify that your loyalty is still with John McCain?
No, it's just a sign of respect. All McCain delegates are committed to George Bush, and we're committed to working just as hard for him as we did for John McCain and his platform.
A lot of voters in Connecticut and elsewhere had real passion for McCain during the primary season. Can that sort of passion be easily transferred to George Bush?
Absolutely. I mean, John McCain did this party in this country a great service. 5 million people responded to that message. I believe those same 5 million are just as working hard for George Bush's reform program, because Al Gore is the clear and present danger. We're working today. We're going to be there for him in November.
Chris Healy, thanks so much for joining us. And now back up to the booth.
Thank you very much, Gene Meserve. And you, Cindy McCain, were just smiling and empathizing with these people you obviously know down there on the floor, just interviewed by our intrepid floor correspondents.
They're all good friends of ours. They're very good friends.
Now, let's be upfront. You say that you support George Bush.
Absolutely.
But is John McCain the better man?
The primary process and the decision of the voters, the Republican voters, made the decision to put George Bush as the nominee, and we support that because we're a part of the process and we respect the primary process. But, I mean, as his wife, in my heart, I'm sure you understand where I come from.
What are the delegates saying to you, Cindy McCain, when you talk to these people who originally were supporting, what are they saying to you about the fact that somebody else is going to get this nomination?
Well, people are very supportive. Hundreds and thousands of people have come up to me and said, we love the job that you did. We respect everything that you did. You did a great job. We loved your message of reform. Thank you for what you did. And I really appreciate that, because that's part of what this process is about, and that's part of the message that we tried to portray during the campaign.
Do you want them to vote for him in November, as it looks like some of them may be?
Absolutely. We've spoken to all of those people personally, and we asked them personally to please cast their vote for George Bush.
But it was interesting, Ms.